Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
John, I'm going to tell you something you're probably not going to believe. I actually feel sorry for Joe Biden.
Oh, you say for Jill or Joe?
Well, Jill, but also for Joe, especially for Joe. I mean, it's coming out now that essentially this literally was a coup. That essentially, because the stories have come out that he no longer talks to Nancy Pelosi, and there's been a couple interviews where he doesn't come out and call her the Wicked Witch of the West, but he might as well say she's the Wicked Witch of the West, and Chuck Schumer and the other people, and so the thing I read last night was Obama. And what Biden was upset about was Obama didn't come and get face-to-face with him. Apparently called him on the phone and said, Joe, you need to step aside. And I feel sorry for the guy. I mean, I really do. I mean, because...
What you mean?
Because, to have a career like that, and supposedly the Democratic convention is next week, and they've got this whole thing lined up where he's going to be the featured speaker on Monday, and then Tuesday it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be on Tuesday, it's going to be somebody else, and then Wednesday it's going to be Tim Walz, and then Thursday, to cap off the thing, it's going to be, Kamala Harris, okay? But here's the problem I have now is we truly, for the next... Well, let's say, okay, so the new president's inaugurated third week in January, so let's go backwards. December, November, October, September. We've essentially, today's the 15th, so essentially for, 5 months now?
Yeah.
Do I get that right? 5 months? We have, for all intents and purposes, a lame duck president. Who
we do.
He doesn't, he doesn't show up anymore. He has apparently, have you ever done this? You ever gone to the White House the website and looked at the schedule? Apparently you can go on.
No, I haven't, but I hear that he's often just on vacation now.
Well, like he was before, but I sort of feel sorry for the guy, I mean, once again, he got put out to pasture. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Okay. I just got a response from Mike Carter. Are you in, John?
Why don't we bring him on?
Are we in? Are you cool with this?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, I won't be able to talk to him, but I'll listen. I'll go on mute.
Okay, let's call here, okay? I'm going to call right now, okay? And let's see if it's going to go through. Well, it's not working. That's on my phone. Hey, Mike, do you hear me?
Morning around 8 a.m. We do not turn the inbound phones on until about 9:30 a.m.
Oh, no, hold it. There's something not working right with my system here. Hold on one more time. There we go. I didn't have the plug-in right. Okay.
Hello.
Mike, Brad Hildebrand.
Yeah, how's it going?
Hey, man, you're on the air right now. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, I had a question for you. We talked about you, and if you don't want to talk about this, but we determined that you were the guy that would know the answer to our questions involving Nellie. You know, we're talking about the thing with Nellie at the casino the other night?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it, yes.
Okay, why is it that they do a criminal history check on you if you win a big jackpot? Do you know the answer to that story?
I don't. I have a small experience with it. I put a couple dollars myself over at the Alton Bell on the Chiefs back in December of 23, and they obviously went all the way and got a decent sized amount of nickels. And I was very surprised at how long it took. And they wanted my social security number and a bunch of things. I had never had experienced that before. I got a ping out of Wisconsin where they asked me if I had lived there before and some other things. And I guess maybe there's some level of interception or fraud, you know, when it comes to bigger jackpots, depending on how it is that you won them. I imagine there's less of it if you do a slot machine versus blackjack or something. I don't know if he was doing the sports book room or whatever, where he was. I don't think they have one, but I have seen it happen, and I know it's a thing, but I don't, aside from what I just shared with you, I could imagine some other scenarios, but that's what I can come up with off the cuff.
Well, I thought it was sort of interesting they did that. I never heard that before. But probably the most important thing for me, and this is the reason why we really wanted to call you, they arrest him for a failure to appear on an insurance, he didn't fail to prove insurance. Okay, I say that's a ticky-tack arrest. You tell me what you think.
Yeah, after 2014 in August, there was a massive push by, Eric Schmidt and other folks when he was in the state Senate to reform mostly the St. Louis County area courts for just these kinds of reasons where, he used to call it taxation by citation, and you get these, what you said, ticky-tack type violations, and then ending up having folks come to jail for not having gone to court in the first place. Well, some of the matters were deemed to be less than hitting a certain threshold that would qualify for really kind of missing court or worthy of a warrant. And they tried to ratchet those up to like driving while suspended, driving while intoxicated, assault, theft. But for insurance and speeding and some other things, they tried to lower those to where they really weren't able to become warrants that easily. Kind of like if you think about a red light camera, you're not there, you don't know you got it. And they were getting closer to that realm. But many of the judges and prosecutors were becoming empty-handed. Their tool belt to get these people into court was becoming empty. And so they've been kind of slowly moving back to these failure to appear type arrests and that. Most of the courts, or not most, but a lot of them still will not do that. My court does not do that in Wentzville, for instance. But I do see it kind of creeping back in. They figured out a new way to send out the notice, to the defendant and put him on his best awareness as they can that they're subject to a warrant. But it takes longer to get there, but it's still, I say, a questionable tact.
Well, the reason we said you were the authority, and I really believe that, and I give you that as a compliment, because you are the authority on two fronts in that you have a law practice, which deals a lot with traffic tickets, DWI, things like that, and you are a municipal judge in Wentzville. So my thing on this is that this sort of goes back to we're having the 10-year anniversary of the Michael Brown thing. I mean, don't you think it's a little bit ridiculous when he goes to the casino, he wins, they run a background check on him, he's got an FTA, failure to appear warrant, ironically, from Maryland Heights, I believe it was. Wasn't the warrant actually from Maryland Heights?
That's what I read.
Yeah.
That's where I think that's the casino he was in Maryland Heights.
Right. He's out at Hollywood. So in other words, they call a Maryland Heights police officer to come out. He comes out. They put him in handcuffs. They put him in back of the Explorer. They take him down to the police station, and he bails out. To me, that's like, I don't care if it's Nellie or my next door neighbor. To me, that's like, okay, this is sort of bogus. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think everybody feels that, and it's normally the scenario I paint for people is, a mom dropping their kid off at school at 7:30 in the morning at the elementary school, and she gets pulled over in the school zone, and the next thing you know, she's waving bye to her kid through the back of a squad car as he walks into school, and the stuff, it happens. It happened a lot more frequently before 2014, the anniversary of which is now. But it's still there a little bit. I don't know that he was targeted unfairly. I imagine it did come through some kind of routine measure that they do there at the casino that I explained earlier. I don't fully understand, but it is a sucky thing, especially on those low-level violations. But it's hard to find a balancing place.
And I agree with you, because the flip side of that equation is if a police officer pulls you over and gives you a ticket and he gives you a court date, if you don't show up, essentially you've sort of thumbed your nose at the law, the system of law, and they've essentially thumbed their nose, if it's in Wentzville, at you, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's correct, but I can add to it that COVID really added another layer to this, where there was, almost 2 years of very low enforcement on the highways. People were going to court often from their couch or the car seat in their car, and just a lot of the municipal interaction and even just lower level associate court interaction at the state level just became diminished in the mind of, so many in the public, and what it meant to have to go to court, and that thumbing your nose has been hard to come back from. There's several other states I've been to, Florida, Utah, especially recently in Miami, they're still in love with going to court virtually and not showing up. And, it's odd to me because it has diminished what the role the court plays with regard to kind of behavior modification, especially in the traffic and housing code realm, and to the extent that they've, dismissed what it meant to have to show up and do those things. We're just still kind of coming back out of 2014, those changes I described earlier. the lack of enforcement throughout 2 or 3 years of COVID. And so I think we're just still kind of healing from it. But his example shows that we might be getting closer than I thought.
Interesting. Hey, can I ask you one other question? I don't mean this in disrespect, because of the fact that I've told people, I've been in court myself a few times, okay? So, and I'm fascinated by the legal system. I think you and I talked this off the air one time, and my daughter's an attorney, and I've found the legal, my father actually went back to law school when he was in his 40s and stuff like that. But here's my question. And we talk about this all the time. If you go back and look at old pictures of Cardinals baseball games, like from the 50s and 60s, the men are all in suits with a tie and have a hat, and the women are all dressed very nicely. Now move back into where we're at right now. Do you ever have people show up in court that you tell them to go back home and change their clothes because they show up like dressed inappropriately or inappropriately? Does that ever happen in your court?
I'm kind of torn on that. Again, after Michael Brown came through 15, 16, and 17, and those changes by Eric Schmidt were kind of making their way through. In fact, probably 70% of the reason he's a federal senator now was his success in some of that court modification that he pursued. But when you used to say if you had your kids with you and they were noisy, they wouldn't let you in the courtroom, I was 100% against that. I think if you're going to come to court and you got kids and you can't have them babysat or whatever, you got to come to court, and that's part of the function of the court is to accommodate that. And they used to also say, well, you can't come in if you have shorts on or a baseball hat. Well, I don't care if you're in shorts. You don't have to be in a 3-piece suit. I don't really like you wearing a hat. I've seen judges rip people a new one when they're chewing gum. And, it just depends. If you as the judge think decorum in that at certain levels, there's a slippery slope or a tipping point where everybody's going to get completely out of hand, and the community that you work in mostly, you can make some of those determinations. But if you're the judge or the court personnel or whoever trying to make yourself feel better, look better, and your ego grow by virtue of the fact that you can stamp the way that you think everybody should look in your courtroom, then that's not really the reason it should be done. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah, it did, and I can't agree with you more. I think it's one of those things. But first off, what's the old saying? Dress for success, and the other one is dress for the position you want, not the position you have. And you know darn well that if I walk into a courtroom in cutoffs, flip-flops, and a T-shirt that says something on the T-shirt, and if I walk into your same courtroom with a 3-piece suit with a nicely starched shirt and a nice red tie, you're going to look at me a little bit differently, right?
I would say at least that person is treating you differently, and that they're treating the whole matter, much more important in things than, someone else who is coming in the flip-flops and that. And so it changes the dynamic. You try to suspend that because at the end of the day, you're not supposed to have your, if the scales are in your right hand, your blindfolds around your eyes, and you can't see any of that in a perfect world. But yeah, I think you have to be a fibber to say that you don't recognize someone who's really treating the court with that type of deference.
Interesting. Hey, Mike, I appreciate it. It's to the point where John, my co-host, and we've got a technical issue where you can't hear him, or he can hear you, but you can't hear him. And he was sort of laughing when I said, well, let's just call up Mike Carter and see what he says. And I called you yesterday, but I got your regular voicemail line on your cell phone, which tells people that don't bother leaving a message because you don't check your voicemail, right? Isn't that essentially what it says?
Right. That's right.
Okay. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And I think you've given some very interesting input on this, both from your job as an attorney dealing with a lot of these kind of issues, traffic tickets and municipal violations and stuff like that, and as you as a sitting judge. I think it's an interesting viewpoint. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad. Anytime.
Okay. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
John, what do you think? Is John gone? I think John.
Oh, I'm here. Sorry. I had gone on mute for that whole thing. Yeah, it was great. Interesting.
Okay. I mean, he's essentially sort of saying, he didn't really come out and say it, but he started saying, they probably shouldn't have done what they did with Nelly. I just don't get it. But I didn't realize he talked the thing about the fact that apparently in Illinois they do the same thing, because he said when he won a jackpot at the Alton Bell.
He put a little money on the Chiefs, it sounds like, and did pretty well.
Well, remember,
maybe we should ask him for when you restart the mouth, Brad, that you could maybe you could have him do some football picks.
Remember, there were some of those St. Louis guys going back to the 1999 football season that went out to Vegas and at the sports book bet for the Rams to win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Remember that?
Yeah.
And they bet like $100 or something like that, and they won like, I don't know, $50,000 or something.
It was a long shot at the time, for real.
Right. They were like, I think at that point in time, the Rams had the highest odds against winning the Super Bowl. They essentially, and I think that probably was exacerbated by, you remember the whole crazy thing where we had Kurt Green.
Trent Green thing, yeah.
Right, and Trent Green, Trent Green. And he's the big ballyhooed, he's going to save the Rams. The Rams are going to do great. And what was it, like second preseason game, he breaks his leg or something like that, or blows out his knee?
Yeah, he broke his leg, for sure. And we were able to get a stock boy to come in and throw the ball around.
Right, a stock boy. That was a stock boy from Hy-Vee in Iowa. That was the whole story. Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?